What's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are gonna be doing a haircut. And this haircut is a really simple, easy haircut that you can use every day in the salon. So stay tuned. Showing you guys how to do a one length, really blunt haircut with just a little bit of face framing layers around the front. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this haircut with you is because I think it's actually a haircut that's gonna be a little bit more trendy in the next couple years. And so I wanted to just break it down and show you guys exactly how I do a one length haircut, because I think people are really liking those blunt ends. And so I'm gonna walk you through step by step how we're doing that on this model. All right, so this is our before, and she actually hasn't gotten a haircut in quite a bit of time. She's actually been growing out her hair from a shoulder length haircut, so it is time for a haircut just to clean up these ends, make them a little bit blunter, and then we're also gonna do some face framing layers just to kind of shape up. She's been growing out some straight across bangs, and so we want to blend all of this in, so let's get started. Okay, so when we talked through her haircut, she wanted to have a very kind of blunt one length. We don't want to take off too much length because she actually is really liking kind of this medium length in here, but we are going to be doing a little face framing layers. But other than that, the rest of it is going to be just really blunt and keeping it that really solid kind of line in the back. So I'm going to section her off just front from the back, and then we're going to start in the back when we start cutting. So you guys can see that it's been a while since she's had a really strong haircut, and you can just kind of tell that from kind of these like little ends right here, and she definitely likes it a little bit more solid. So that's gonna be where we're gonna strengthen up this line right here. So I'm gonna section her off. We already did the front from the back, and then I'm gonna go just straight down the middle. Now, one little tip that I am doing is I'm using my comb to section out that hair, but what I did was I placed my pointer finger down at the nape of her neck, and I'm literally connecting the dots. And so that way when I get to my finger, I can section away the hair. It just makes it really, really easy. I'm also gonna do that on this side as I'm sectioning the hair. So I'm going to do it kind of right where her head kind of starts to round down, and I'm going to do a diagonal back section. I'm actually gonna make it just a little bit more. So same thing, connecting that dot. We're going to section this away. And same thing on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that same spot on her head where I want to connect my finger to, place my finger there, and connect the dots. And again, this just makes sectioning out hair so much easier, and it creates just cleaner lines. So one of the most important things when we're cutting just a solid blunt line is we want to make sure that our body positioning is straight onto the client, and same thing with our client. So my client is currently crossing her legs, so I'm going to have her uncross her legs right now, sit up nice and tall. And I always like to double clip my cape, so I always clip it right here, kind of in the center, and then I clip it off to the side so that there's no pieces hanging down, getting in the way. And then I always am gonna have my client look down. And one last thing you wanna check is you wanna make sure that the chair is actually straight, because I've done a lot of haircuts where the chair might be slightly crooked and they're looking down straight, and now you're gonna have a really crooked haircut. So making sure that the chair is straight, the client's sitting up, their legs are uncrossed, and that their chin is just tilted down. Now what we're gonna do is I wanna make sure that my body positioning is straight onto the client, but I will kind of bend and widen my stance a little bit and bend my knees so that when I'm taking my sections, I'm actually holding my body really straight and I'm not kind of tilting or doing something like this. I tended to do that a lot when I was cutting hair. I would start to lean one way or the other, and it's really important with a really strong line haircut that we're not doing that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take just kind of my middle section right here, and we're gonna cut that guideline. You can kind of pull those away if you want. And we're gonna be cutting at 0 degrees, so just straight down. And you guys can see I'm kind of bending with my knees a little bit, getting in that really straight line, making sure that this isn't one way or another. Straight down, and cut straight across. And I'll bring in this section over here, same thing, straight down. And if you need to just take a step over, you can totally do that as well. And I always just like to double check. So have you ever noticed when you go to cross check that may be one side tilted down or tilted to another way. A lot of times it's because we started to do this, or we just decided to move our body this way. So taking a step and making sure to cut, or taking a step and cutting down so that you're really square onto the client will help a ton. So I'm just going to double check. It actually seems like it did kind of come off this way a little bit, so I'm just going to check there. And I'm not like crazy one of those people that's like a crazy technical hair cutter and like really insane about body positioning, but it is important, especially with a haircut like this, or if you're doing a bob or anything like that, that you're just making sure that you're really aware of your body. So now we'll take our next section, and I'll just use my clips to section this out. Same thing. And you guys will notice too when I am combing this down that I'm using the thinner, not the wide tooth comb, the fine part of the comb. I was trying to say thinner part of the comb. Again, make sure that your client is looking down, shoulders are square once again, and just follow that same guide. And I do like to have my clients look straight, just to double check my line too, to make sure that their head wasn't tilted one way or another, something like that as well. And I'll always just kind of go down and just always double check that. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more sections here, literally following the same guideline as before, and we're just going to finish up this back section. Okay, so as we continue over to the side, she doesn't have a ton of hair here on the side, and so sometimes people will take straight across sections here, you know, on the sides. For me, I'm not too concerned about it because down here she doesn't have a ton of hair where I think it's really gonna mess up what I'm doing. So you just wanna make sure that the client is always looking straight in the mirror, and we're going to comb this down. We're just gonna cut it. And one thing you do want to double check around the ears is sometimes, especially on like shorter hair clients, hair will get tucked up around the ears or it'll get bunched up back here. So you want to make sure that you are combing that all the way through. Now I'll show you on the other side. She does have piercing, so you have to be careful when you're combing through. I caught it a little bit earlier, you might have seen that on camera, but you do want to make sure that you are getting all of these little hairs that sometimes get kind of wrapped up in there. Okay, so here's going to be that section where I said she has those little piercings. So what you can do is sometimes you can ask the client to take them off, but I just like to kind of comb it straight down and just make sure that we got all of them, being really aware that those piercings are there. So now once I've cut all of the side and the back, I always like to check and cross-check my hair in the front here just to make sure that it was cut evenly and that everything looks good, because this is going to be the thing that the client notices, the first thing that they look at when they're looking for symmetry in their haircut. So it looks like it's even. Now we're going to move on to the face framing layers. So when it comes to face framing, she has these little bit of bangs that were just straight across bangs that she's growing out. And so we're gonna blend these in there. We wanna make sure that that little corner right there is gonna blend into the rest of it. So I like to look at my face framing just a little bit deeper than I would a money piece section. So I'm just gonna comb the rest of that away. But you guys can see this would almost be like just a little bit thicker than my money piece. So I'm going to comb it all straight down, trying to grab all the hair. And again, I'm going to use the fine tooth comb here. And I'm going to gather this all here. And you guys are gonna see that's right where the starting point of her bangs is. And just straight down, I'm going to slowly notch into this. And I didn't really take off that much. You guys will see, I just took off kind of a little bit, that little bit of corner, but you can see that those were just some dead ends there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go just a little bit further back, and these are kind of diagonal back sections also, being aware for piercings. Making sure that we have a really clean section again, grabbing all of that. We already know that we've cut some of that, so that's good up there. But I wanna blend this in just a little bit more and just literally slide cutting it down. And again, not that much is coming off. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So we're gonna take our section, just a little bit thicker than our money piece area, tuck the rest behind her ears here, grab this section, and again, we're holding it just straight down at natural fall, finding where her hair kind of starts. And you will notice that now I'm slide cutting, but I have to kind of twist my arm here because obviously we're slide cutting on the opposite side. Now, if we were left-handed, we would be doing this on the other side. And again, not that much is coming off. I'm gonna take a little bit deeper here. I am really careful when I'm doing face framing layers because I do not want to have her have this thing where she's got no hair up here and all the hair is behind her ears. So I am always very aware with where I'm taking this hair from and making sure that I'm not creating a big hole right here. And that's the biggest problem that I typically see when it comes to face framing layers is there's just a big hole. And a lot of times that can happen from breakage, but sometimes it can come from taking that face framing layer too deep. So you guys can see here, all it is just going to be that nice little face framing thing. This isn't too solid. I don't like it to be really crazy solid either. So we can always just double check too that everything's like laying really nicely. I'm gonna grab just a little bit more right, notch, right in there, just because it needed just a tiny bit healthier right there. But overall, this is the start to our wet cut. We're gonna dry it and then we're gonna go through and kind of texturize a little bit after we dry. Just finished blow drying her. We didn't really even use a brush. We just kind of rough dried it pretty quickly. And so now what I'm going to do is, you guys can see her ends are still pretty blunt. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do these kind of cross check sections, and I'm going to cut and notch into them with some deep point cutting just to kind of break up those ends and have it just to be a little bit more fluid looking. So we're going to do this just a little bit all the way through her perimeter. And you can literally see the difference from this piece to kind of over here. It's just a little bit more softened, this section, versus over here still pretty blunt and just kind of harsh. So it just kind of softens it a little bit. Now, one thing you want to be really careful of is when you're doing this, to not overly shatter out the ends, because again, the whole point of the client is getting a blunt cut. We just don't want it to look like we just chopped it straight off. We still want it to look like a haircut, but we don't want it to be completely shattered out either. And I'm gonna do this all the way into our sides. But one thing with the sides is I am gonna over direct it back a little bit because I do wanna still maintain some weight in the front there. I don't want it to be, like I said, overly shattered out in the front and create more of a hole or anything. So I do kind of over direct this back a little bit. Okay, so now you can see our kind of face framing layers now that they've dried and everything. But she had straight across bangs, and like I said, I didn't really touch the length there, but they're still feeling a little blunt to me and just kind of heavy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take that section that was her straight across bang, and I'm going to hold it directly up. And you guys are gonna see that corner there. And I'm just going to notch into this just a little bit to break it up a little bit. So that fits a softer face framing piece versus feeling like straight up grown out bangs. You can just see how much softer that is right there. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. All right, and here is our official after. Oh my gosh, I love how this turned out. So beautiful, so blended like I showed you guys, and just so much more dimension. This is gonna be a lot more low maintenance for her, and it's just obviously so much more blended. So I hope that you guys learned something from this video, and I hope that you try out at least one of these techniques or formulas. All right, guys, I hope that this video was helpful for you. I know that this one is a little bit different and a little bit more simplified than what I normally do, but I hope that it was still helpful and that you still took maybe something away that you can implement in the salon today. As always, if you haven't already said hi on Instagram, make sure to do so. I have my Instagram profile linked below. You can send me a DM. Let me know if you like this video or if you want to see something else. And as always, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do so now. Hit the subscribe button. I share videos like this all the time, every single week in fact, and you're gonna wanna make sure that you're not missing any of them. And finally, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this hair cutting video. I cannot wait to show you what I have up my sleeve for next week's video, so I'll see you then.